So think about this. We have the worst inflation in 4 decades, the worst collapse in real wages in 40 years, the worst crime wave since the 1990s, the worst border crisis in U.S. history. We have Joe Biden, who is the least popular president since Harry Truman, since presidential polling happened, and there wasn't a red wave. That is a searing indictment of the Republican Party.
Red wave or red wedding? The Republicans have won control of the House, but the Trumpists have lost. And in what was supposed to be an electoral wipeout in an economy facing the worst inflation in 40 years, has turned out only to be a minor victory. What happened to the Republican Party? Why has it underperformed expectations? Is the GOP headed for an internal civil war? And with Trump's announcement of his candidacy, what does this mean for the 2024 election? All that in this video. But first, good news. I just got my first sponsor, ExpressVPN. Now, have you ever tried to look up an article or a video and it wasn't available in your country? Well, this is where ExpressVPN comes in. With ExpressVPN, I can change my country of origin and get unrestricted access to any news and media from anywhere in the world, including Russia. And that helps me to do the research I do to make these videos. And with ExpressVPN, I can do all of that with a VPN that's faster, more secure, and more customer-friendly than anything that's out there. So if you want to help out the channel, as well as getting 3 months extra of ExpressVPN for free, go to expressvpn.com/mytake. Link in the description. Back to the video. Red wave.
The Republican wave turned into a Republican sprinkle.
Was it a red ripple?
Yeah.
It was a little ripple.
Like a little ripple.
Traditionally, midterm elections favor the opposition. In every single midterm election in the last 20 years, the opposition party has gained seats. In 2022, the same thing happened when Republicans gained control of the House. But what makes this remarkable is that Republicans only won a razor-thin majority despite campaigning during the worst inflation in 40 years, at a time when Biden's approval rating was just 40% and 70% of the country thought the country was headed in the wrong direction. What should have been a red wave turned into the best performance by the Democrats of a governing party in the midterm elections in the last 20 years. So why did this happen? Well, the number one reason is Trump. Voters looked at the politics of Trump, the politics of election denial, the politics of culture wars and nepotism, and they looked at the state of the country under the Democrats. High inflation, geopolitical instability, rising crime rates, and they decided that that was better than whatever Trump had to offer. Right across the country, candidates endorsed by Trump underperformed compared to other Republicans. In Pennsylvania, Trump-backed Dr. Oz became the first Republican to lose a Senate election in Pennsylvania since 1962. In Arizona, Kari Lake, who peddled Trump's election conspiracies, lost the governor's race in what was supposed to be a red state. In Nevada, Trump acolyte Adam Laxalt lost narrowly to his Democratic opponent. Even right-wing firebrand Lauren Boebert, despite running in a deep red district in Colorado, only scored a razor-thin victory against her Democratic opponent. At the same time, Trump opponents like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Georgia Governor Brian Kemp cruised to victory without Trump's endorsement. And it shows in the numbers. In the 114 districts that were competitive, where each candidate won by less than 15 points, Trump-endorsed candidates underperformed by 5 points on average, while Republicans not endorsed by Trump overperformed by 2.2 points. That's a 7% difference. That is the Trump factor. And the reason is quite simple. Trump is a polarizing figure. So Trump's endorsement is just as likely to mobilize more supporters as it is to mobilize the opposition. And this shows in the fact that Democratic opponents of candidates endorsed by Trump actually raised more money than Trump-endorsed candidates did. While most Republicans, 61%, believe that the 2020 election was stolen, the vast majority of the American people don't. Just 29% think that the election was stolen. And the vast majority of the American people don't want people taking over American institutions who don't believe in democracy and want to start overturning elections. Trump's strategy for 2024 was to place his supporters in key positions, particularly in the swing states, so that they can have influence over the running of the elections and the counting of the votes. In 2020, only a handful of patriotic officials stopped Trump by refusing to throw out votes on his behalf.
Well, Mr. President, the challenge that you have is the data you have is wrong.
Look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Trump hoped to replace these people with loyal stooges who could help him overturn the election results in 2024. But that strategy has failed. Of the 141 stop-the-steal candidates who ran for positions that oversee elections, whether it be Secretary of State, Attorney General, or Governor, only 14 won their races. The entire strategy of focusing all of the right's political capital on election fraud conspiracies and culture war topics, instead of promoting a clear alternative vision for the current economic challenges, has failed. For 2 years, cowardly Republicans refused to confront Trump directly and oppose the election conspiracies or clearly condemn the January 6th insurrection, because they believed that it would be politically advantageous to side with Trump. But that political calculus has changed. Republican Civil War.
Donald Trump kept saying, we're going to be winning so much, we'll get tired of winning. I'm tired of losing. I mean, that's all he's done.
For the longest time, Republican elected officials only expressed their opposition to Trump, the January 6th insurrection, and the Stop the Steal rhetoric in private, but failed to do anything against it in public. Just 10 Republicans voted to impeach Trump after the January 6th insurrection. Liz Cheney, who voted to impeach Trump, was removed from leadership, and Republicans dismissed the findings of the January 6th committee. Republicans feared the wrath of Trump's base, the majority of whom still staunchly support Trump and believe the 2020 election was stolen. In the primaries leading up to the 2022 midterms, anti-Trump Republicans who refused to endorse the Stop the Steal narrative were voted out of power and replaced. But the 2022 midterms changed that. While election denial can win you a Republican primary, it can't win an election. Trump, it seems, is more of a liability than an asset. He lost in 2018, he lost in 2020, and he lost in 2022. And politicians respond to votes. Republican officials are looking for someone strong enough to replace Trump, and they may just have found him.
We've accomplished more than anybody thought possible 4 years ago, but we've got so much more to do, and I have only begun to fight. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Thank you for a historic landslide victory.
The principal candidate to lead the anti-Trump coalition is Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. In contrast to Trump-endorsed candidates, Ron DeSantis crushed the Democrats in Florida. While in 2018 he was elected by a razor-thin margin of just 0.4%, in 2022 he won a landslide victory by 20 points. On top of that, for the first time in modern history, there will be no statewide elected Democrat in Florida. Once thought of as a swing state, Florida is now solidly Republican. DeSantis is emblematic of the kind of Republican that will try to take control of the party from Trump. You see, Ron DeSantis is not so different from Trump. He has the same hardline anti-immigrant rhetoric.
We have a responsibility to stand up against an administration that has just decided they don't want to have a secure border.
He has the same focus on culture war issues over economics.
It's woke ideology.
Woke executives.
Florida is where woke goes to die.
He embraces vaccine skepticism.
I have to wear this mask. I mean, please take it off. Honestly, it's not doing anything. We got to stop with this. Don't just be there. So if you want to wear it, it's fine, but this is ridiculous.
People know that Florida is a free state. They're not going to be shut down. They're not going to have restrictions.
But most importantly, he has embraced the very same authoritarian, anti-democratic tactics as Trump. In 2018, 65% of Floridians voted yes in a popular referendum that ended the permanent disenfranchisement of ex-convicts, allowing them to vote in elections. DeSantis amended the law, forcing them to pay outstanding debts and fines before being allowed to vote. This is in effect a poll tax. Pay to vote. Illegal under the Constitution. Yet DeSantis succeeded in re-disenfranchising hundreds of thousands of voters right after a huge majority of Floridians had enfranchised them. Anti-democratic. When Florida's state legislature drew fairer election maps for the House in 2022, DeSantis vetoed them, demanding more Republican-tilted, gerrymandered election maps. And he got them, and they helped to guarantee the Republican landslide in this election. The only real difference with Trump is in style. DeSantis uses the same talking points, but delivered in a less abrasive tone, and most importantly, he has not centered his campaign on election denial. His pitch will be simple. I support all the same policies, rhetoric and ideology of Trump, but we'll do it in a way that doesn't keep losing us elections. In other words, competent Trumpism. And such a message could peel away votes from Trump in a future matchup. That being said, more than 200 Republicans running for Congress and statewide positions who questioned the legitimacy of the 2020 election won or kept their seats, including more than 180 in the House of Representatives. What this means is that even though many high-ranking Republicans are looking to abandon Trump in favor of a more electable alternative, there is still a major cohort of elected Republicans who back Trump's Stop the Steal rhetoric. What that means is a divided party. And Trump has already taken preemptive steps to snuff out the competition before it can even start. Trump 2024.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
On the 15th of November 2022, Trump announced that he was running for president for the 4th time. What does this mean for the 2024 election?
We're winning big, big, big in the Republican Party for the nomination like nobody's ever seen before. Let's see, there it is, Trump at 71, Ron DeSanctimonious at 10%.
When it comes to the Republican primary, despite a poor showing at the midterms, Trump is still a favorite among Republican voters. The latest polls show that 55% of Republicans would support Trump in a primary, compared to just 25% for DeSantis. This means that if DeSantis were to challenge Trump at the ballot box, it would still be an uphill battle. The great irony is that even though Trump has shown himself to be an electoral liability, he still has the overwhelming support of the Republican base, and many of the Republicans elected to Congress still back Trump. On the other hand, Republican elites and conservative donors support DeSantis because they realize that he could win them elections. This will only set the stage for a fierce and divisive primary election. By announcing his campaign early, Trump achieves two things. Firstly, he can scare any would-be challenger into not throwing their hat into the ring for fear that Trump would trounce them. Because Trump still has sway over such a large part of the base, it's extremely politically risky for anyone, even DeSantis, to challenge him. If DeSantis wins, he could become president. But if he loses, his career could be over and Trump would be vindicated. Secondly, Trump's unusually early announcement also protects him when going up against the Democrats in 2024. You see, Trump is currently under multiple investigations. There's a Justice Department investigation into his actions during the January 6th insurrection. There's another Justice Department investigation looking into his role in keeping top-secret documents in his private home at Mar-a-Lago. In Georgia, prosecutors are investigating Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 results in Georgia. In Washington, D.C., the January 6th committee is also investigating Trump's role in the January 6th insurrection. In New York, the Attorney General launched a civil investigation into Trump's shady business dealings, and also in New York, the Manhattan District Attorney is prosecuting Trump's company for tax fraud. Any one of these multiple investigations could bring down Trump. By announcing his candidacy early, Trump is hoping to shield himself from legal trouble. You see, now that he's a candidate, he can claim that any investigation or legal action against him is politically motivated, simply Biden trying to lock up his political opponent. This could give him cover in the eyes of voters, vindicate his election conspiracies, and make prosecutors weary of pushing too hard lest they come across as politically motivated. On top of that, if Trump loses the Republican primary, there's a real risk that he could sabotage Republicans in the general election. We know that Trump is not one to be humble or concede defeat.
It's a rigged election. It's the only way we're going to lose. Because the only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that. But you can't ever accept when they steal and rig. Can't accept.
Think about it. Do you seriously see Trump endorsing DeSantis after a hard-fought primary battle and handing over all his mailing lists and campaign money? It's more likely that Trump contests the election and claims it was rigged, or worse, runs as an independent, thereby splitting the vote and sabotaging the Republicans. So what if Trump wins the Republican primary? What are his chances against the Democrats? The election is 2 years away, so it's too early to tell, but current polling shows that in a matchup against Biden, Biden wins with 45% to Trump's 41%. The same poll also shows that Biden would beat DeSantis with 43% to 39%. But of course, that's only the popular vote. Trump could still win the Electoral College with those numbers. But while polls will change and go up and down in the next 2 years, certain fundamentals won't. The Trump scare factor remains. While this election was supposed to be about inflation and the state of the economy under Biden, indeed 50% of voters had inflation as their top concern, Democrats managed to make it about Trump and saving democracy, precisely because of Trump's election denial rhetoric. 68% of voters believed that democracy was under threat in this election, and the number 2 concern in this election, as expressed by 44% of voters, was saving democracy. In fact, Democrats spent $44 million to support far-right Trump-backed candidates in the Republican primaries, knowing that they would lose once they faced a Democrat in the general election. And it worked. With Trump running in 2024, Democrats will use the same tactic to mobilize their supporters and divert attention away from how Biden is running the country. Second is the economy. If inflation is not brought under control or the country slips into recession, the Republican, be it Trump or DeSantis, will have the advantage. The 2022 election has taken some of the wind out of Trump's sails, but it has not stopped the ship. There are still 200 Republicans in Congress who deny the outcome of the 2020 election. There are still Republicans in the states who have been elected to key offices that oversee elections who are election deniers, even if they are fewer than expected. Trump's plan for 2024 hasn't changed. He's going to run, and when the results come in, he's going to declare victory whether he won or not. And if he loses, he's going to incite his supporters and encourage Republican officials to overturn the results in their states. That is the plan. That has always been the plan. How does the military-industrial complex control America? Find out in this video. Don't forget to get ExpressVPN and get 3 months extra free. Consider becoming a Patreon to support the channel. Leave a comment for the algorithm. Thank you to my patrons including Linda, Richard, and many more for making this video possible. Like, share, and subscribe, because this was my take.